Hi everyone, this is Jim Vernon. I'm going to try and take you through all the steps for downloading and then combining and joining the data for the Business 226 semester project. I'm here at the Google screen just to show you where you find the data download for the Boulder County Assessor's Office. I'm going to pause this video from time to time when I'm involved in a download, but I'll try to show you pretty much screen by screen and step by step. So we're here and we Google Boulder County Assessor. It's the data download page that we want. I click on that and here we are. And we'll see they actually have a number of data sets. They're all CSV files. The files that we want are the buildings file, which is 51 megabytes. These are somewhat large, but we can still do it. And then the other is going to be all sales. So let's actually start with all sales. We click on that and we'll see that it's actually going to come up with a sales file down here. It's going to take a while to download, so I'm going to pause. Okay, so that took a few minutes, actually really less than 2 minutes, I think. It's called sales. You'll notice there's a 2. It's because I've done this before, so it's actually got a second file. So I'm going to open this and we can take a very quick look at it. The sales file is much simpler. So we're going to open the sales file and we'll take a look at the columns. I'm going to pause one more time. So this is the downloaded file. This is a CSV file, so we're going to save it as an Excel file. But let's just open up each of the columns to make sure we see everything that's in them. A very simple file. There are, 7 columns, right? And those columns, some of them are self-explanatory, and the ones we really need are self-explanatory, but there is a data dictionary. There's a column called strap. That's like a property identifier number. There's a deed number, which is a more technical legal document identifier. There's T-date, which would be transaction date. I'm sure we'll take a look for the file soon, or the definition file. Sales CD, deed type, I don't really quite know what they are, and we'll figure them out if we need them. And then, of course, there's the price of the transaction, and then status CD. I'm going to go ahead and save this as an Excel file, and we'll look at the columns a little more later, but that's the entire file. Oh, one quick thing before I save it. We go all the way down to the bottom. There are 637,086 records. You can see some of them have some missing values here or there, but that's one of the reasons why this is going to take so long. It's because we've got to deal with all those rows, but I'm going to show you how to do that. So before I do that, I've actually got to show you the other file and a few things we have to do. I'm going to come back up to the top. Let's first start by saving this as an Excel file. I'm going to put it in the directory that I use for this class. And let's just call this Boulder County Assessor. I'm going to call it data demo. I have a file saved, although it didn't work exactly. The main thing, though, is instead of saving it as a CSV, notice that I've chosen the type to be Excel workbook. It's going to be a much handier format to save it in. This might take a little while, although saving it doesn't usually take too long. You can see that as I'm going. So it's saving reasonably rapidly for whatever it was, 50-something megabytes, 50 to 60 megabytes or whatever. Okay, if this is going to take a while, I'm going to pause. So that save actually did take about 4 or 5 minutes, and I realized I'm working at home, and I'm connected to the Front Range network remotely by virtual private network, and so I was saving to my system drive, and that's probably what took a little bit longer for the file save. So I've got this in Excel format now. Let's go back and take a look for the other file that we need. So we'll go back to the website. We have sales, and now we're going to do the same thing with buildings, so I'm not going to show you all the steps, but we're going to click on this. As you know, it's going to download a buildings CSV file. When I have that file open, I'm going to pause until then, and I'll reopen and I'll restart the video. So here's the buildings file. It's still in CSV format. Instead of saving this one to Excel format, we're going to copy the sheet from this file into the file we've already saved as an Excel file. So if we right-click the tab, you may not have seen how to do this, we click on the menu that says Move or Copy. We're going to select the Boulder County Assessor Data Demo. That's the file. We're going to move it to the end. We're going to put it after the sales to. It doesn't actually matter in this case whether we create a copy or not. If you want to save the file you're working on, you do create a copy, but in this case, we're not saving the CSV file because it's going to put it in the Excel file. Again, this could take a few minutes, so I'm going to pause the video here. But wow, that was actually quick. Look how fast it showed up in the Boulder County Assessor Data Demo. So I don't need to pause here. Let's do a couple of things. Let's rename the sheets. We can just call this Sales Transactions. Transactions. And then this is going to be, these are really building characteristics, but we'll just call it building. I don't think we can do a tab name that long. Wow, we can. Okay, building characteristics. So I like to label my tabs with what they are. There are a lot more columns in this, and we might not need them all. But the main thing to note is the first column in this is strap. That's the same as the first column in the sales transactions. And so essentially we have a key that we can use to move back and forth between one worksheet tab and the other. Lots of columns here. You can actually see, though, we're going to expand a few and kind of reformat. We can rename these a little bit later. But so for instance, the design code DSCR, design code description, is telling you what kind of property it is. And the first ones in this database are all single wide and double wide mobile homes. We don't really need to know what all of these mean just yet. Some of them will be obvious, and some of the obvious ones will be the ones we want. For example, built year. It's going to tell us how old it is effectively, right? And we keep going. There are about 27 columns here, I think, that we're going to have eventually. But a couple of them are going to matter more than the others. We've got basement square feet, so if it has a basement, we have the area. Notice there's a lot of properties here where there are zeros. Well, trailer homes don't have basements. They don't have garages typically, although apparently some of these do. I'm just maximizing all the columns so we can see what's in them. And really, we're getting some of the good stuff. The number of bedrooms, I think it's odd that some of these are 0, but maybe that has to do with how mobile home information is recorded. But we have main floor square footage and total finished square footage. Those, to me, are some of the keys. Air conditioning, there's a description for the air conditioning, heating, right? Exterior wall, not sure what that means, something about the exteriors, and a description of it. Lots of information that for trailer homes or mobile homes we're probably just not going to have. But if we can get them all cleaned up, so these are all the columns, and we probably don't need all of these. Before we do what I call the join, we might actually want to delete some of these, but I wanted to go through them, and I'll show you where in the Boulder County Assessor data we can find a little bit more information on what the columns mean. But the point I have right now is we have property transaction sales, we have the dollar amounts, and we at least have the age of the home and how big the home is, and we know just from common sense that the sale price is going to be related to how large the home is, and maybe to factors like how old it is or the number of bedrooms and so forth. When we figure out some of these other codes mean, maybe we'll pull in a few more variables, but at least we have a model and we have raw data. So what remains now is the challenge here, and one of you already recorded that you kind of got stuck at this point, I think. So I think you can get to this point without too much coaching from me. I'm going to do a second part of the video because I'm going to run out of time eventually on this. But for now, let's just celebrate the fact that you can get 2 of these files together and you can put them in tabs. The reason we want them in the same tabs is we're going to do the join, and then we're actually going to end up with just one tab. So I'm going to pause here, and then we're going to deal with the data join after we deal with where can we find more information about what these columns mean. So if we go back to the website, the Assessor's Property Data Download, when you just read through this, you see a little sentence here. It says, each table and its fields are described in the Property Data Download Help Manual. So let's click on that. It's going to pull up a PDF, right? And we can kind of scan through that pretty quickly. I'll let you do more of this on your own. But it's going to give us each of the tables, and we're only interested in sales CSV and buildings CSV. Right? These are not links, unfortunately, that are working in the browser, but if we just scroll ahead, building CSV, right? This is the one. I'm certainly not going to read all these at you, but strap is the unique account number for a property. That's going to show up in both files, and that's what we're going to use for the join, as I've mentioned. But we can verify things like what the BLD num, that's a building number. Honestly, when I do data analysis, I will usually rename the columns with the full names rather than BLD underscore num. You have enough room in Excel to take the column and say building number. You can even use a little number sign. Things like that will actually make the data just easier to navigate. So we can go through here. Build year is exactly what we would have expected. Effective year, though, so that's interesting. It says if a property was built in 1985 but has had extensive remodeling, we might actually consider its effective year built to be, say, 2005 if that's where the remodel was. Right? BSMTSF is square footage of the basement type as designated by the code in basement type, so it's talking about all the fields. So again, without reading all of these, we can run through and see, oh, okay, a lot of these kind of make sense, but we might want to rename them just to have sort of more English language labels in our columns. So there's your extensive, it's called a data dictionary sometimes. All right, it'll show you what's in every column. And we might use this to kind of eliminate some columns before we do the join. Okay, we can skip land, we can skip permits, we can now sales, much simpler, right? We've got the strap, there's the deed number, which I meant, the T date is the date of sale. I'm sure that stands for transaction date, right? The sales code, there's a qualified, unqualified, or pending, so we might use that to eliminate some data from our analysis. Maybe we don't want to look at qualified or pending. I don't quite know. So this says qualified sales are deemed arm's length transactions where money's exchanged. So that actually suggests we should probably remove unqualified or pending qualifications because we won't have as reliable data there. So maybe we'll do some of that cleanup before we do the join. I just want you to be familiar with these things, and it's easy to get this kind of information. And believe me, this is actually also a skill that I think will be helpful at various points in your career. So I'm going to pause here, and I'll come back with, all right, how do we get ready for the join? Okay, so I'm going to describe a little bit about how we get ready for the build. Sorry, not the build, the join. And then we're going to do the join in a separate video because we're going to run out of time in this one. The main issue is that these two tables aren't the same size because we have more sales transaction records than we have buildings. In other words, a building could be sold more than once, and that's partly what's going on. So we have many more rows in the Sales Transactions tab than we do in the Building Characteristics tab. It's kind of like we have to make a copy of some of these rows in the Building Characteristics and join it to more than one row in the Sales Transaction table. We don't want to do that manually. There is a way to do this, and that's where we're going to use what's called the VLOOKUP function. So I'm going to create a separate video that's going to show you how to use the VLOOKUP function. The problem will be that we can't just do the VLOOKUP function and then copy that function 637,000 times plus 27 columns worth. So that's going to be a bit of a problem, and we've got to figure out some ways to do it in the other join video. So this concludes this part of the videos. I'll publish this and at least one other video to kind of get you through the data download and data cleanup side of the project.